Mayaro MP and UNC Shadow Minister of Trade and Industry, Rushton Paray. Pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Paray.
Hi, good evening, Mikey. Good evening to you and your audience, your radio audience.
All right, also on television right here. So we have the viewers. Yeah, we have the viewers going to be weighing in as well. So don't forget that.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now, investors and the general public use the unemployment rate to understand the state of a country's economy as a measure of how well the government is running the country. A high unemployment rate means that the economy is not able to generate enough jobs for people seeking work. And seeing how critical this is, why then is it being played out in the public domain as far as what is being said by the finance minister, Colm Imbert?
Well, Mikey, what has been happening after the last Article 4 report and some subsequent report, the Central Statistical Office has identified our unemployment rate at 4.7%. Now, international organizations like the ILO and World Bank and so on, they accept that an unemployment rate of 5%, they look at it as full employment, because there will always be a certain subsector of your workforce that will not be working for one reason or the other.
Right.
So at 4.7%, as indicated by the Central Statistical Office, it means that Trinidad is at full employment. So the minister comes before the country and says, well, look, we're in a good place. We're at full employment. But when you scan the environment, when you scan the surroundings, you are seeing joblessness everywhere. You are seeing just recently 8,000 people line up for a cruise ship job that pays between $2 to $3 US an hour on the open seas all over the world. People were prepared, people with degrees, first degrees, master's degrees were willing to do that. When you look at the fallout from the energy sector, the data tells us there are about 10,000 professionals who were offloaded from the energy sector, who may not have jobs, who may not have found jobs. You have the collapse of 6,000 small businesses at about 3 or 4 employees per small business. So nowhere in the world can you justifiably say that there is full employment in this country. No, statistics is one thing. So the statistics will tell you are at full employment based on an international standard. But the government and Minister Imbert, as a policy maker and a policy director, ought to be seeing that, listen, this statistics, while these statistics, it's fine, but I know policy is required differently to deal with the type of joblessness that we are seeing in this country. So that is the crux of the argument between me and Minister Imbert that has come out in the newspaper over this weekend. Because I am asking the minister, show me or prove to me where this country is at full employment.
Yeah, because he goes on to say that, listen, instead of you accepting the good news, as he put it, you chose to write a long-winded and ranting letter to discredit the statistics, insinuating that the minister had pulled this figure out of a hat. Now, he says that the data that you're objecting to was calculated and published by the Central Statistical Office on its official website. And you're objecting to official data that is plainly visible to the public. Now, here I have an issue as far as plainly visible to the public. Now, if you're talking about statistics, I mean, that could always be altered and manipulated. But the reality is, I mean, 4.7%, and as you said it, a lot of SMEs are still recovering, or some are unable to even reopen their doors after the pandemic. And in the heights of the pandemic, there wasn't really an economic line that was given to these SMEs, as well as even private citizens from the bank as far as leniency and how best to move forward. I mean, again, why play with such critical information when in fact that the reality is facing citizens on a daily basis?
There's a simple reason for that. The PNM has been unable to make any accomplishment out of any policy decisions for the last 8 years. So when you have nothing to show for it, you will hook on to any glimmer that can create some opportunity for hope. So the numbers, the statistical numbers, he hooks on that as a good highlight point for PNM policy. But let's dive a little deeper quickly into that, right? So when you look at the statistics that is also on the central bank website and the CSO website, the numbers in terms of the unemployed persons out of the workforce. So our workforce in Trinidad and Tobago hovers around 650,000 persons, right? So there's about 55,000, according to the data, of people that is unemployed. Now 55,000 people. If you had 55,000 low-end, low-skilled workers, that's one thing. But what you are finding inside that 55,000 workers, you are having professional, semi-professional, middle-income, middle-class professionals, doctors, nurses, engineers in that unemployment number. But here was the danger in that, Mikey. This is a group of people who has the opportunity to fly away. So this causes a brain drain. If these people get the opportunity to fly away and find jobs outside, we are going to create such a gap in our professional labor market that it will take some time to refill. And that is a huge problem that policy has to address. How do we stop these people? What are we doing new in terms of our diversification, foreign direct investment, to make sure we can bring in new industries of the future, to pick up all our graduates from UTT, UE, these unemployed professionals? No policy is being discussed at this level, but you want to rant and rave and clap your hand because we had 4.7% unemployment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly this goes, hand in hand with what we're seeing playing out with crime in society. Criminologists will tell you straight out that these are the side effects of basically an economy that has not reignited, that is not performing. And again, it's very, very serious. But here you have the minister talking about the CSO statistics. And I know you made mention of it, that in the past, the very said government that Mr. Imbert is part and parcel of has made it quite clear that as far as the CSO providing unreliable and questionable data was said in the past. I mean, so this level of hypocrisy, again, when playing with something that is so serious.
But look at this. Their manifesto promise of 2015 was for this new National Statistical Office. They came into government promising the country that for better leadership, we need to be data-driven. We need to make data-driven policy. But 8 years after, there is no National Statistical Office, and there's a reason for that. They don't want the truth. They do not want the country to see the failures of their policy. So what they do, they skim over it. They only talk about, like Skittles and M&Ms are falling from the sky. But yet to the man on the ground, you are seeing people begging at the front of supermarkets. You drive through some areas, you have people on the side of the road. We've literally turned our communities into vending communities in front of every home today. In rural Trinidad, there's a shed with somebody selling cassava and dashi. And yeah, man, nothing is wrong with that, Mikey. Don't get me wrong. Right. But we are pushing a lot of people. We are staring them on the verges of poverty. And they're lining up at the welfare office for food card, food support. And don't let me get started at the MP's office. We have a regular line every day. Man and woman coming and complaining that they don't have jobs, they can't feed their children. Pharmaceutical prices are skyrocketing. There's a pseudo-monopoly in the pharmaceutical industry where prices are so exorbitant. And people are catching the tail. And then you have this Minister of Finance who is our policy director. And he's saying, hey, we are not to worry about it. We had full employment, everybody good. That cannot be the way forward.
And you're right, and it's very scary. I mean, when you look at what is being played out here. Now, the Minister of Trade and Industry, Paula Gopi-Skoon, made it quite clear that SMEs account for over 200,000 plus jobs. Now, I believe it's more than that. However, they have not shown that they are even friendly or business friendly to many of these SMEs. Again, was there an economic lifeline? What are some of the things that people can access that are easily accessible to do business in Trinidad and Tobago? And we're not seeing the entrepreneurial spirit being passed on where people are so confident that they're going to set up shop. I mean, if it's not crime, it's the mere fact that the prices of goods have gone sky high. Again, why be disingenuous with something that is so important when it comes to bread and butter issues?
Let's put it this way, right? During the pandemic, in fairness, there were a lot of SMEs that did not have the requisite paperwork in terms of registration with the Board of Inland Revenue. Many of them didn't have bank statements. So if you have to present yourself for the grant and the support systems, you ought to be known to the government. And when I say known to the government, you have to be registered somewhere, you have to have a bank account and so on. I agree that the vast majority of them may not have qualified because of this. Now, 2 years onwards, what has the state done to bring these SMEs back into the system? Have you gone out in a community rollout and asked SMEs, come in, let's help you register, let me show you how to do up your little book. So the next pandemic or the next global disaster we have, the state is now in a better position to know who you are and how to support you. And that is what the trade and industry ministry ought to have been doing for the last 24 months. But they've done nothing. The Minister of Finance, they say, well, we put out the grand there, who get, well, that's your business. That cannot be the way how you look after our country. The fundamental function of any government is to look after the welfare and the safety of its people, and this government is doing neither. Look, today alone had about 3 murders. And the crime is killing business. And one of the problems with SMEs being destroyed, Mikey, SMEs are community magnets. SMEs in a community that help the sports club, the All Force Club, the kindergarten. And when these businesses collapse, not only there's a labor issue, but who supports all these little organizations to grow the community spirit? So it is really a bigger issue than just labor alone when small and medium-sized enterprises collapse in your community. Those things are not being addressed, and we must have policy to address these matters.
Yeah, but looking at it from all angles, I mean, as far as direct foreign investment, we haven't heard anything about that. Who's investing? Are we leading anywhere as far as renewable energy, manufacturing sector? What have we done that is looking as though it's outside of the box and ready to perform and at least be a leader in the region? Then you're looking at the energy sector where many people were sent home that are on the breadline at this time. We heard about the dragon gas. You spoke about it right here on the Observer. It seemed to be a pipe dream. When you take all of this into consideration, how are we to find comfort in something that says that so many of us are employed, but yet still we are still on the breadline? I mean, is there a disconnection of reality between what is actually taking place and what government wants us to believe?
That is the only way I can see there's a disconnection. Somewhere there is a lot of gaslighting happening. And let's just talk about the energy sector very, very quickly. We have had the two best salesmen in this country, Minister Young and the Prime Minister. They have been hovering from South America to Europe. Every year they go, they're sitting in the boardrooms of these companies. And for 8 years, millions of dollars of taxpayers' money in the boardrooms in London, Sweden, Amsterdam, Austria, and we can't get one extra barrel of oil or 1 million cubic standard feet of gas up to today. So both of them are absolute failures in terms of their negotiation skills to bring any kind of energy to us. And the IMF, today, if you look at today's newspaper, they are projecting a 3% growth in GDP in 2023. Now, any growth that we found since 2019, 2021, 22, it has been energy-based. So there has been no uptick in terms of our GDP from any other sector. And who you have to thank for that uptick? The People's Partnership, because if it wasn't the work of Tana and Kevin Ramnarayan and those guys to give all these incentives in 2013 and 14 that brought this gas up for us in 18 and 19 to give us this boost in GDP, we would have been in a worse off position, Mikey. So, and that is the thing that you know you are looking at a bird's eye view. And I mean, look at rig days. We have the lowest amount of rig days today in terms of drilling and exploration. And all these boardroom meeting, Dr. Rowley meeting with everybody in Doha, and nothing. We are ramp up nothing as yet. And what about our negotiation in Guyana? We have made no progress with the Guyanese oil boom. We have no progress in terms of our relationship. So what are these men doing? Nothing, Mikey.
Yeah, but again, I'm looking at it not one-dimensionally. Let's take, for example, long Easter weekend. The focus should be at least domestic tourism. What's happening here within our borders? And you have people who say, listen, I want to go hiking, I want to go camping. But even to get to the trail itself, there's no access roads. There's one particular case in Matura where people reach a point where they want to go to nature, but the bridge is not reliable. So the tour guide pulls out a petition and he's asking the general public, please sign it so we can get the bridge fixed. I mean, this is domestic tourism we're talking about. People want to have some sort of recreational facility to go out, and the money is circulated. The tour guide gets money, the person in transport, security. I mean, one would think that the focus would be, listen, let's try from all angles to see how best we can reignite or put an economic spark or something. Why is this not happening?
There are two reasons for that, Mikey. The Ministry of Tourism is not an investment ministry. It is an advertising ministry. So that's the first problem. The investment in new business for tourism falls under the two state enterprises, Trinidad Tourism Limited, Tobago Tourism Limited. I do not know what they've done for the last 2 or 3 years. I have not seen anything new. I think there was one project they did up somewhere in the Maraval Hills in Paramin. I think that was one project that I see they did. But here is the big problem. The regional corporations are tasked with the maintenance of tourism facilities like the Toko Lighthouse. In Mayaro, we have 1 or 2 fishing depot, but the problem is you don't get the money. So you, in the Mayaro Regional Corporation, under the Environment for Tourism Facilities, you get $200,000 for the year.
Right.
Where in which world could 200,000 maintain tourism facilities in Mayaro? It can't. So there's a fundamental flaw in how these systems are designed and how the money comes, because you need to maintain the facilities. And then, as you rightfully say, policy should allow private sector investment. Let this $6 or $7 billion that are sitting in commercial banks earning 1.5% interest encourage private sector to invest in local tourism facilities, projects, entrepreneurship, so they'll get at least 5 or 6 or 10% return on their investment. But we get the money out of the bank, and when it hits the economy, you have the multiply effect. So every $1 gives you $3 of spending power. That is how you turn the economy. Nothing is happening in that regard.
Yeah, but we keep talking about the same issue that's been highlighted for quite some time. Even in your letter, you said that the government should focus on supporting small businesses, diversifying the economy, and creating a conducive environment for job creation and sustainability instead of manipulating employment numbers. Of course, but then again, if they're getting away with manipulating the numbers, which I find it hard to see, because people are living on the breadline. I mean, that's the reality. No matter what the figures say, there are many people, and as you said earlier, who are simply selling their prime real estate or leasing or renting, and they're packing up and they're saying, you know what, I'm taking my chances somewhere in a foreign land because things are just not working out here for me. We have a government that is not business friendly, and my entrepreneurial spirit is dying. Young people are coming out of school every year and competing for these jobs, and we don't even know if our young people are even globally competitive in order to acquire some of these things that are happening in the changing world. So then where do we go from here?
I think we need to start from a policy level. We need to we need to go into communities and assist small businesses. We need to get these caravans going, get the banking sector to be more friendly to small businesses. Look, I mean, I even made a suggestion to the RIC concerning the impending electricity rates for the commercial sector. At 150% coming down, I think we spoke about that a couple of months ago. Why can't the government put a block of money, ask the commercial banks to hold it as security, allow businesses to upgrade to solar and wind or whatever at a no interest loan? So you find a gradual approach. It will be easier on the consumer. They will not transfer all of that charges to the consumer at the end of the day. But I mean, all these things require creative speaking, creative language. But nothing is coming from the state. You talk about manipulating the statistical data. One of the challenges with the CSO is that by law, any business that severs 5 or less employees do not need to report it to the Ministry of Labor. So when you look at 6,000 or 5,000 small businesses that have closed down, the CSO doesn't pick up that data. So you're talking about three employees per small business at 6,000 business, like 18 to 20,000 people who are unemployed, but the CSO data doesn't pick it up because there's no legal requirement for reporting. So you can't take that CSO data for granted. And the reason we have policy directors who are sitting in governments and so on is that we can't only rely on statistics. You have to see what's happening on the ground. Look at other sectors. Look at the miscellaneous in your newspaper. If you have 25 columns with people selling fridge and stove and bureau, That means things bad with people that selling basic items to survive. Those are indicators that you must look at. Forget the central bank for 2 minutes and see what's happening. What are people selling in this country to live?
Quickly,
That is something.
quickly, I just want you to touch on this national insurance. I read an article recently by Ken Ali, veteran journalist, and he had a lot to say on the matter. I don't have it in front of me. But is that bubble going to burst? And what are we going to say to the next generation that has to rely on it?
So the state is claiming that the fund is close to collapsing because of the amount of people that is not paying into the system, and it's going to burden. They want to move the retirement age from 60 to 65 and so on. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the party and the opposition, but what I can tell you is that there is no support on the opposition benches for any extension from 60 to 65 in the existing format. I recall the leader, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, said that, she may be more interested in looking at a voluntary arrangement. If persons willing to work for additional 5 years, that's fine. If not, you should be ready to go home, or you should be allowed to go home at 60 based on your plans and so on. What the issue here to me is that the NIB is doing nothing to help fix their problem. So when you look at UNHCR saying that we have close to about 100,000 Venezuelans on the island, why are we not putting these 100,000 people into the productive sector, get them on the NIS system, right? Get the employers to pay their tutors, and we bridge that gap, because the data is telling us that over the last 5 or 6 years, we've lost about 60 to 75,000 people from the register. And Emirates comes and says, hey, guys, people will retire. But when you look at the last 4 years, the numbers of people who have retired through the NIB has only been about 3,500 to 4,000 people. So where the other 65,000 people are? Where are them? You follow? So what I'm saying, you can do. We have probably about 10, 20,000 domestic workers who are working in people's homes. Let's bring a category for domestic workers. So your housekeeper and the person who's coming to iron for you on a weekend, you can bring them into the insurance system. They get to pay a little fee, and at 60 they get a little payment when they hit their old age. So there's some creative things that the NIB can do in order to help bridge that gap and lessen the blow, strengthen the fund as well. A central bank can even look at increasing the rate by a point or two in terms of savings. Now, when you have a company like the NIB that has $2 billion worth of savings, a 1.5% increase in savings at the commercial banks, that could increase the size of the fund via an interest payment. So there are things that can happen, but again, the state is being silent and secretive on a lot of these issues, and we on the outside, we are just left to speculate, and that creates a bit of uncertainty in the business community. How do we invest in this country? The crime issue, no conversation. I mean, should I invest my $2 million to get robbed? Look, just a while ago, I understand a businessman, there was some shootout somewhere again. This can't continue. We cannot continue like that.
Yeah. Closing comments, go right ahead.
Mikey, all I can tell you, I mean, as a member of parliament, as a legislator in this country, as a father, as a businessman, I have no choice than to believe that the best is yet to come for this country. I think we have a problem of leadership in this country. I think Dr. Rowley, he lacks the inspiration, he lacks the emotional intelligence that is required to take us through the next couple of years. And, unless we don't get the right policies in place today to start steering us in the right direction, I do not know if we could wait until 2025 for a general election. I don't know if we'll have a country in 2025 for a general election. That is how bad the situation is. And that is something must be addressed, and we will continue to call on the government. We'll continue to be the watchdog for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And by all means, we'll continue to address all these matters in the public domain. And who vex. We will call it out as we see it as an opposition, and we'll continue to hold the government to task at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paray. As always, it's been a pleasure, and all the best to you and your team. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mikey. Take care.